Time to pull up a chair. We've got another great story for you today in the rLounge. Sometimes the quiet exits speak the loudest. Today in the rLounge, OP makes a statement that's louder than any shouting match ever could be. Mom hated me for not supporting her after I went broke due to divorce. I took back the car I gave her. I, 44 male, never imagined my life would turn upside down so quickly. I was always at the giving end of the spectrum. I always had my family's and friends' back. I was in a position to enable them financially. Now life has pushed me to the bottom, and now I feel I need help. Sadly, there's not enough people who can reciprocate the gesture. I was once my mom's golden child. Oh, let me clarify. It wasn't due to her blind love for me. No, it was because I supported her through all financial aspects. Suddenly, my fate flipped, and I became the villain of the family. All because I dared to prioritize my survival after my divorce left me broke. Before this mess, I was doing pretty well for myself. I co-owned a successful event management company with my ex-wife. We led a pretty good lifestyle. We lived in a spacious house, drove a luxury car, and took exotic vacations. My mom couldn't have been prouder. She was the first to tell everyone that her son was living the dream, and I made her a part of my dream life. I gave her everything she needed to live a fulfilling life. I felt she deserved it. Mom never had it easy. She raised me and my two siblings as a single mother after Dad walked out. We grew up scraping by, so when I hit it big, I felt an obligation to take care of her. I didn't just buy her gifts, I transformed her life. I bought her a house. Not a fancy one, but a 2-bedroom with a front lawn in a safe elderly neighborhood. I bought her premium insurance and also covered her property taxes and sent her on a few vacations to destinations she'd only ever seen on postcards. On her 65th birthday, I bought her a new Toyota Camry, the one she always dreamed of, but could never afford. It wasn't about money. It was about showing her she mattered. She won't shy away from bragging about her car or the vacations I funded and would proudly say, "You're the best son a mother could ask for." My siblings had their own opinions. No matter how mature people are, no one likes to be called the second best. My brother didn't make much to spare for Mom. Though we shared a good bond, he would turn pale whenever Mom bragged about the stuff I gave her. My sister is married with kids, so she barely has time or money to spend on Mom, making me the only child who supported our mother. Fast forward to 2 years ago. My ex-wife and I were struggling to keep our marriage from falling apart. Our business was thriving. We were working with the dream client, but behind closed doors, our marriage was crumbling. Long hours at work turned into late-night arguments, and before I knew it, we were splitting up. We didn't have children, so I thought it would be seamless, where we divided our assets equally. Dang no, it turned out to be brutal. Ex-wife didn't just want her half of the business. She wanted blood. I won't get into the details of it. Let's save it for some other time. To say the least, it was draining, both emotionally and financially. And by the time it settled, I had lost my company, my savings, my house, everything. I was left renting a small apartment and exhausted the leftover money to start my business from scratch. I had to sell my car and other expensive stuff to start over. Naturally, I assumed Mom would understand my circumstances. After all, she knew how hard it was to get over a failed relationship. I expected her to support me after everything I had done for her in the last 10 to 12 years. When I told her about the divorce, she was empathetic and kind, checked up on me. I showed up every now and then to ensure I was doing fine. Just like me, she didn't expect the hard financial blow coming our way. Gradually, when I told her about the divorce terms and my financial struggle, her attitude started to shift. Initially, she was supportive. Then came out her entitled questions. "What about the vacation you promised for my next birthday? Are you still paying for my health insurance? You're not going to stop covering her car payments, are you?" I tried to subtly drop a hint that I won't be able to bear her expenses any longer, but she was just not getting it. She was behaving in a way that let me have it as much as and as long as I could. My frustrations reached its peak, and I told her up front that I couldn't afford to keep up the same level of support anymore, at least not for a while. Her response got on my nerves. She took a deep sigh, followed by, "Well, I guess I'll just have to manage on my own. Not that anyone around here cares what happens to me." It stung. This was my mother, the woman I thought would have my back no matter what. She was acting like I'd suddenly turned into some heartless Scrooge. I was already going through a lot and didn't want to add her to my stress list, so I let it slide. I gave her the time to adjust, thinking change must be scary for her too. After all, no one wants to downgrade their lifestyle. I told her I could bear her expenses till this month, and from next, she's on her own. If there's one thing Mom knows how to do, it's escalate a situation. After our initial conversation, I thought she'd adjust to the idea that my financial support was drying up. Instead, she doubled down. She started calling me more often. Not the kind where she asked how I was doing. Oh no. There were more like check-ins to see if I'd changed my mind about taking care of her. One call in particular stands out, where she said in a voice dripping with that passive-aggressive sweetness only moms can master, "I'm just saying, if you could afford all those fancy vacations with your ex-wife, surely you would have a little extra racked up at the corner to spare it on your mother. I mean, it's not like I'm asking for much, just the basic expenses. We can skip the vacations and luxury shopping." I reminded her again that I was barely making ends meet. I was not in the same financial position I was 2 years ago. I've had to let a lot of things go, and I needed her to understand that. She huffed, saying, "I hope you can sleep at night knowing your mother is struggling." Her words blew my mind. What the hell was she struggling with? She still had the car I paid for, a mortgage-free home, and a steady pension, which she had been saving for years since I was taking care of her expenses. Struggling wasn't the word I'd use, but guilt? Oh, she was an artist at that. Apparently, Mom had gone on a little campaign telling anyone who'd listen how her selfish son had abandoned her in her old age. I wanted to scream. Did no one remember the car, the vacations, the property taxes I paid for years? But arguing felt pointless. Mom's narrative was already in motion, and I was a designated villain. The breaking point came when I found out she'd been embellishing the story. In her version, not only did I stop paying for her expenses, but I'd stolen money from her during my divorce to cover my legal fees. Ever since I heard that story, I have lost my mind. That's when I made the decision. If Mom was going to treat me like a villain, then maybe it was time to act like one. The car she flaunted to everyone as proof of how much her son loved her, I was taking it back. I'm thinking of selling that car and use it to run my business smoothly. Want to have a sanity check of posting it here. Do you guys think it would be an extreme step? It's not an extreme step at all, OP. You supported your mom for years, providing her with a home, vacations, a car, and much more. Taking back the car isn't about being cruel. It's about prioritizing your survival and future. It's not like you're leaving her with nothing. She has a mortgage-free home and a pension to rely on, which is far more than many people have in retirement. You've done more than enough for her over the years. Update 1. Apart from a few digs from negative people who come to the internet to unleash their frustration, I got mostly empathetic comments and kind words from very lovely people. Thanks to everyone who helped me in the moment of doubt. Here's how it went. The day I showed up at Mom's to break the news was one for the history books. I had rehearsed the conversation in my head a dozen times, but no amount of preparation could have made it less awkward. As soon as I walked up to her, she immediately sensed something was wrong and asked me suspiciously, "Now what?" I cut straight to the point and said I needed to take the car back. For a moment, I thought she didn't hear me. Then she laughed with a bitter sound and asked, "No, you don't. You're just messing with me. Don't you?" Her confidence made me chuckle, and she goes, "I knew you were kidding. Tell me whatever you said in the last few weeks was all a prank. You're not cutting me off, right?" I said, "I am. I'm also taking the car. I'm in a tight spot right now, and I can't justify paying for a car I'm not driving. I need to sell it and strengthen my business." Her expression shifted from disbelief to fury, and she yelled at me, "You have some nerve. After everything I've done for you, you think you can just waltz in here and take my car?" I was already pissed at her, yet I tried to remain composed. I tried to make her understand it's not about taking anything away from her. It's about survival, and I need the money to put my life together. I need to build my business. She snapped at me in between and said, "For whom? You don't even have a family, not even a wife. There's no one to inherit your stuff." I was like, what the hell was that? How could you talk to me like this? You know I'm struggling emotionally and financially. Instead of supporting me, you're rubbing salt in my wounds. She got sarcastic and said, "Struggling? Do you even know what struggle's like? Do you know how hard I've worked my whole life? How many sacrifices I've made for you? And now you want to take the one nice thing I have?" I wanted to remind her that the car wasn't the one nice thing she had. She still had her house, her pension, her health. But I knew it wouldn't matter. The argument escalated pretty ugly. She accused me of being ungrateful, selfish, and heartless. At one point, she even claimed that taking the car was a form of elder abuse. I stood there, stunned, wondering how we'd gone from me helping her live her dream to her accusing me of cruelty. In the end, I didn't argue. I simply handed her a folder with all the paperwork and said, "I'll give you 2 weeks to make arrangements for another vehicle," and walked away. The fallout was immediate. Mom called my siblings, my cousins, and everyone to tell them how I'd robbed her blind. But you know what? I didn't feel guilty about it. Taking back the car wasn't just about the money. It's about setting a boundary and taking control of my life. And if that made me the villain in Mom's story, so be it. Mom spared no effort in painting herself as the victim of my betrayal. It wasn't just the usual guilt tripping anymore. It was character assassination on a grand scale. I didn't even bother to tell my side of the story. My life is falling apart in my 40s. What my extended family and relatives think of me is the least of my concern. My siblings, who remained distant from our matters, pitched in. My brother texted me, "Was it really necessary to take the car?" I briefly described my situation. He said he understood my situation, but still thought I shouldn't have taken back the car as it made me look like a bad guy. I was already exhausted after dealing with Mom's crap and didn't want it more. I said everyone thinks bad of me because Mom painted me that way, and honestly, I don't care. And let's not pretend she can't afford her own car. She's been saving up her pension for years. If she knew how to manage money, she would have saved a lot from the monthly allowance I gave her for household expenses. It was more than she needed. He sighed. He gets it, but still thought I could have handled it differently. I got so annoyed, I said, yeah, I should have handled it differently. Like, keep bending over backward until I completely ruin myself? I'm done. I can't keep bailing her out, especially not when she's acting like this. He didn't have much to say after that, but his tone made it clear he thought I'd gone too far. Meanwhile, my sister, who was nowhere to be found in all this, texted me asking if anything happened between me and Mom, that she's been reaching out to her for help. I explained her in brief, and she said, "Sounds like Mom. You'll be the villain no matter what you do. Good luck." She had quietly distanced herself from Mom years ago. I feel she took the best decision for herself. 2 weeks went by, and I went to pick up the car. I wish I got it towed, but I'm not in a position to pay for a shipping service. As soon as she saw me entering the front porch, she rushed, picked up the keys, and threw it on my face, saying, "This is why you're here, right? Take it and go away." It was so humiliating picking it up. It felt like my self-respect was crushing down, yet I swallowed my pride, picked up, and drove away. I have to put it up for sale. I hope I get a good buyer. I'm not thinking too much about anything else, except building my business all over again. The accusations of elder abuse and the public character assassination were totally low blows. Then there's your brother. His "I get it, but you're still wrong" attitude is frustrating. It's easy to criticize from the sidelines when you're not the one footing the bills. Update 2. Thanks for the support, folks. Writing it here feels like therapy now since I couldn't afford the real one. Here's what happened next. 34 months after I took back the car, I got an invite for my niece's wedding. She was my first cousin's daughter, and I knew Mom would be there. I debated skipping it altogether, but I didn't want to give her the satisfaction of thinking she scared me off. So I showed up, bracing myself for the inevitable outrage. The moment she saw me, her face turned bitter. I was talking to someone and overheard Mom narrating her exaggerated story about how hard it's been without a car. She was so loud that people from the moon could have heard her. I ignored her and went to greet a few other relatives, but it didn't take long for her to make her move. She walked up to me and said, "Well, look who decided to show up." It was loud enough for everyone to hear. Then she looked at me in the eyes and asked, "How's the new car, dear? I hope it's worth more to you than your mother's well-being." I was in a fun mood and didn't want any confrontation. I took a deep breath, smiled at her and said, "Hi, Mom. Nice to see you too." She wasn't having it. She snapped at me. "Oh, don't play nice now. You've made it clear how little I mean to you. I'm just surprised you didn't bring a tow truck to haul away my furniture while you're at it." Everyone nearby looked at us. I said calmly, "I'm not going to do this with you. If you want to talk privately, we can, but I'm not going to stand here and be dragged through the mud in front of everyone." She scoffed. "Oh, of course. Let's keep everything private so no one knows the truth about how you've treated me." I could see where this was going, and I wasn't about to take the bait. You know what? Believe whatever you want. Say whatever you want, but don't expect me to keep showing up if this is how it's going to be. With that, I turned and left the party. It wasn't dramatic or explosive. It was just me walking away. Since that day, I've made peace with the fact that my relationship with Mom will never be what it once was. And honestly, I'm okay with that. I focused on rebuilding my life, working on my business, paying off debt, and slowly regaining my financial stability. The most interesting twist came when my brother called me to vent out a week ago. Apparently, Mom has been bothering him after her fallout with me. She went to him to sob about the trauma I gave her. My brother also tried to seize the opportunity to outshine me. He financially enabled her. He became the super savior for Mom and said he would take care of her monthly expenses and that she shouldn't worry about me cutting her off. Little did he know that no one could beat Mom in seizing the opportunity. She was using him for a money ride. She showered him with praises and apologized for sidelining him all these years. She labeled him to be her true son. For the initial few months, it went smooth. He covered her food and utilities. She showered him with love and praise. Then eventually, Mom's tiny demands started popping up. Sometimes it was a doctor's visit, sometimes for a sink repair, and sometimes for her arthritis-friendly shoes. If all these were not enough, she borrowed a huge chunk of money for her tooth extraction and blew it up on her frivolous new furniture. When my brother confronted her about it, she said the old one wasn't comfortable and she needed an ergonomic couch to comfort her aging back. He told her that she should have used her savings or the pension money for all this stuff, as he cannot bear anything more than the monthly expenses. Guess Mom's reaction? She told him point blank that she had used up her savings to book a cruise trip, which she's intending to take with her girlfriends during the holidays. Imagine the look on his face when he got to know about this. He freaked out. He said he was draining so badly funding the mom's expenses, and there she was wasting money on unnecessary stuff and taking vacations beyond her means. When his wife came to know about this, she was fuming at him. Who wouldn't? They have not taken a vacation in years, and they see Mom going for a cruise trip? She gave him an ultimatum to put Mom in her place, else he'll have to find a place for himself outside their house. He's given 2 months' time to Mom to sort out her finances, as he can no longer bear it. Mom tried to play the victim again, saying all her children were abandoning her, leaving her to die. Brother sat her down and explained her the math. The pension she received was sufficient to get her going, and if she needed a few bucks extra, that's when she should reach out to others for help, and not for every other thing. I couldn't help but laugh at the whole thing. He was like, "Man, now I understand why you're so done with her. I said you wanted a tag of the best son, now deal with it." We had a good laugh over this. That conversation was a turning point. Hearing him acknowledge Mom's behavior affirmed I wasn't crazy. I wasn't selfish. I was just tired of her ungratefulness and entitled behavior even after doing so much for her. As for the car, I ended up selling it and using the money to write off some debt. It wasn't a life-changing amount, but it gave me some breathing room. Mom and I still aren't on good terms, and maybe we never will be, but I've stopped feeling guilty about it. At the end of the day, I did what I had to do to protect myself, and if that makes me the villain in her story, so be it. Thanks for reading. I'll share the update as it happens. I'm sure more updates will be on the way, as Mom is unlikely to change in the near future. Your mom couldn't resist trying to make it a public spectacle, but you handled it with grace. Not giving her the reaction she was fishing for was the perfect move. The reality is, you've done more than most people would have, and her reaction says more about her than it does about you. Selling the car to get some breathing room was the right call. What would you have done? Share your thoughts with us in the comments below. And thank you for joining us today in the rLounge. Be sure to like and subscribe and hit that notification bell so you don't miss out on our next video. Until next time. And please put your chair back where you found it.